or Bible chapter 3 talks about rebuilding the altar. When the 7th month came, the children of Israel were in the towns. The people gathered as one man to Jerusalem. Then arose Jeshua the son of Jozadak with his fellow priest, and Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel with his kinsmen. And they built the altar of the God of Israel, Jesus Christ, to offer burnt offerings on it, as it is written in the law of Moses, the man of God. They set the altar in its place, for fear was on them because of the people of the lands, and they offered burnt offerings on it to the Lord, burnt offerings morning and evening. And they kept the feast of booths, as it is written, and offered the daily burnt offerings by number, according to the rule as each day required. And after that, the regular burnt offerings, the offerings at the new moon, and all the appointed feasts of the Lord, and offerings that everyone who made for a free will offering to the Lord. From the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer burnt offerings to the Lord, but the foundations of the temple of the Lord was not yet laid. So they gave money to the masons and the carpenters, and food and drink, and oil to the Sidonians and the Tyrians to bring cedar trees from Lebanon to the sea to Joppa, according to the grant that they had from Cyrus, king of Persia, rebuilding the temple. So basically, Cyrus told the Jews of Israel to get wood and all that from Lebanon, so that Lebanon could help them build the temple as well. Rebuilding the temple. Now, the 2nd year after their coming to the house of God at Jerusalem, in the 2nd month, Zerubbabel the son of Shealtiel and Jeshua the son of Jozadak made a beginning together with the rest of their kinsmen, the priests and the Levites, and all who had come to Jerusalem from the captivity. They appointed the Levites from 20 years old and upward to supervise the work of the house of the Lord, and Jeshua with his sons and his brothers, and Kadmiel and his sons and the sons of Judah together supervised the workmen in the house of God, along with the sons of Hadadad and the Levites, their sons and brothers. And when the builders laid the foundation of the temple of the Lord, the priests in their vestments came forward with trumpets, and the Levites, the sons of Asaph, the cymbals of the praise of the Lord, according to the direction of David, king of Israel. And they sang responsively, praising and giving thanks to the Lord. For he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever towards Israel. And all people shouted with a great shout that they praised the Lord, because the foundations of the house of the Lord was laid. But many of the priests and Levites and heads of fathers' houses, old men who had seen the first half, wept with a loud voice when they saw the foundation of this house being laid, though they shouted aloud for joy, so that the people could not distinguish the sound of the joyful shout from the sound of the people weeping. The people shouted with a great shout, and the sound was heard far away. They have a map here. It says Jerusalem at the time of Zerubbabel, from 538 to 515 BC. Among the first tasks undertaken upon the exiles' return was the rebuilding of the altar and the temple. Almost immediately, the altar was set up, and regular burnt offerings were resumed. About a year later, the foundations of the temple were laid, but opposition from other local governors halted the completion of the temple for over 20 years. Finally, in 515 BC, during the reign of Darius, the temple was completed. The city walls, however, would not be rebuilt until about 70 years later, under the leadership of Nehemiah. So the map here, you have the area inhabited before the exile, which was mainly, let's see here, which was pretty much, all of Jerusalem, pretty much. I mean, you had this is mainly all of Jerusalem was still inhabited before the exile, and then of course the area inhabited after the exile returned to Jerusalem was I'm trying to understand what this map is saying. Basically, it tells you that of course the Jews owned Jerusalem before the exile, and when they came back to Jerusalem rebuild, they rebuilt the temple and all these other things as well. And here's the map of that right here. So you see that's Jerusalem right there, and of course they recaptured Jerusalem whenever they came back to rebuild it. So you see all that. So it's chapter 3 about rebuilding the altar and rebuilding the temple. And I'll be right back with 4 here shortly.